Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Ready to revolutionize your franchise with AI? Franchise Now empowers franchises with advanced AI solutions, automatic processes, and enhanced marketing strategies. From personalized customer interactions to predictive analytics, we help you harness AI to drive growth and efficiency. Transform your franchise with the power of AI. Visit Franchise Now to learn more and take your business into the future. Now, here's your host.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Franchise Marketing Radio. I'm your host, Rob Ganley. Franchise Marketing Radio, we dive into the world of franchising, marketing strategies, business ownership through engaging conversations with industry leaders. Today is no different. I have today with me founder of ReUp. His name is Ryan Sawchuk. And basically, ReUp is revolutionizing the real estate industry with its pre-listing and technology solution, increasing home values with no risk and upfront costs. We're going to dive into how ReUp is leveraging groundbreaking tech like LiDAR scanning and data analysis to benefit both sellers and buyers. So with that, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Rob, really good to be here, and thank you for having me.
You got it. You got it. So my first question is always I unpack your history, your life, right? It's like, real quick, in 2 minutes, tell me everything. No. But yeah, tell me a little bit about this inspiration for ReUp, because you do have an interesting career, and I know it started with finance, and you've been in tech sales and done some amazing things. So try to recap what led to this idea of ReUp and the decision to franchise.
Yeah. So my background is got my master's of science and finance from Johns Hopkins. I thought I wanted to be an investment banker. Very quickly found out I did not like investment banking. And actually found out I really enjoyed actually watching the managing director sell. So I was like, man, I've got to learn how to do better sales. So I actually popped over to Silicon Valley. I worked for some amazing companies and led some amazing sales team. I led global sales development for Zora, which is now a publicly traded company. My biggest claim to fame is led all of CrowdStrike's global sales development function there. Grew that team from 10 to over 120. In less than 2 years. And we were the fastest company to reach $1 billion in revenue. Again, another great public exit. Led another company, Tessian's North American sales unit in the cybersecurity, and really found out I really enjoyed mirroring what the financial world taught me and learning how to actually apply that to sales through simple processes and scaling and models and things like that. And I really base a lot of my stuff and how do we actually hit our sales numbers based on sales activities and just looking at pull-through rates. So it's really cool when you can actually pull all the way up the funnel to see how to actually hit your end target revenue number based off of sales activities. But during the pandemic, I actually had one of my friends, her mom actually unfortunately passed away due to COVID and just came crashing through her life. And long story short, she didn't have the time, energy, or money to fix up the house that she just inherited. And she just gave the house up to the bank. She's got 2 kids, 2 jobs, but not 2 pennies to rub together. And I didn't think that was fair. I mean, I thought to myself too, I was like, a lot of Americans are probably in this similar situation. And lo and behold, it is. So wanted to figure out how do we help people in those types of situations create the most value that they can from the sale of their real estate. Real estate has created the most millionaires in the history of the world in the US. And how do we put that power back into the individual? And then on top of that, bringing in the tech side, how do we actually position the product to the most buyers? And how do we design the product to the buyer's specification? So we've actually patented that process. But that was the genesis of ReUp. Focused really the first year on, can we actually sell it? Is somebody actually going to trust us with their most valuable asset? Check that box. Did over 17 transactions our first year in 2 different locations between Austin and San Antonio. And then the really cool thing about ReUp and real estate is a lot of brokers, a lot of spaces in the real estate space are franchises. So I could have gone the typical tech route, take on a bunch of money, try to build the glass tower, or I could figure out how to franchise the business and actually gain the local knowledge that our franchises have. Real estate's hyper local. I remember actually the first time we met with our Vegas franchise, we were talking about what we do in Texas. Vegas was one of our first franchises. And they were like, we don't do that type of flooring here in Vegas. And again, if we took this kind of tech approach of just glass tower, we're doing it everywhere the same way, we would have probably blown up in Vegas. But our franchise actually had this really nice feedback loop. And again, we want to design the products to our buyers and specifications and create these really, really unique customer experiences for our clients.
Yeah, it's funny how like it always boils down to simplicity on the front and some type of complexity to overcome in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, I was going to kind of tee up the next question, which is, what's unique, right, about ReUp? Like, what is the attraction? Obviously, if I'm a business owner or I'm a franchisee, I decide to be one. One of the biggest questions is always, how do I get started? What is this product and why would someone be attracted to it? And so when I start looking at what you're doing, I'm thinking, oh man, he's removing all this normal resistance that you have in sales and in marketing, and he's removing risk and stuff. So tell me a little bit about like the core idea of this idea of taking your asset and the complexity of trying to make it more valuable. Like, how do you do that effectively and profitably so then you can flip it for a lot more than probably expected, right? So this is the idea, right? And you can't do that as a homeowner because most people don't have the skills, the knowledge to it. So tell me, summarize it better than I just did, but that's what That's what I read into it.
Yeah, it all starts with our patented process base, which is our digital twin platform. And you alluded to, we use LiDAR scans. The cool thing is all of the technology is based in your pocket. Most people are carrying around their LiDAR scanners in their cell phones these days. So we train our franchise owners how to LiDAR scan the properties. We work now with buyers and sellers of houses now. So it all starts with us creating that digital twin experience. It's much easier, much better for us to create the digital twin of the asset, show what it could be versus being like, well, this swatch looked good next to this swatch, and you get it in and then it's like, whoa, that's not what I was expecting. So within Base, we're able to digitize a house within 48 hours. And we have millions of permutations that somebody can look through and see all the different versions of the house that we can create. Through that, we're also working to create the analysis of the real estate. So saying, okay, this is the value of the house in its current condition. This is what it's going to take for us to improve the value of the house. And then this is how much we actually can create an upside value. The cool thing about ReUp is if you don't make money as our buyer or seller of real estate, we don't make money. It's a novel concept, and we're the only player in the space who actually has that shared alignment. If you bring in a real estate agent, they want to help sell the house as fast as possible. If you bring in a contractor, they want to push as much product as possible. If you sell it to a flipper, they want to buy your house for as little as possible. So again, us having the shared interest in the upside that we create for the real estate is really, really beneficial. So once we agree the numbers on the house, we essentially work with our franchises. Our franchises are in the market. They're creating the full pull-through plan from the renovations, coordinating the contractors, making sure that the distributions are going out right. There's so many gotchas that can happen too, even if you've got the money to do a renovation where there's some shady practices in the contracting space. 90% of contractors are awesome. There's like 10% who give the space a really bad rap. So we're able to spot that stuff because we see that all the time, and we're able to say, nope, like we're not going to work with that individual. We're going to work with this trusted individual we've done many deals with. And then we get everything through the renovation. If it's with the seller, we actually stop short of actually finishing out the house. And again, this is our patented process. We list the home with 90% completion. We don't install the floors. We don't put the wall colors on. We don't put the cabinets colors on, the hardware. We list it in that condition, and we let the buyer actually choose what they want. So it's a great way for us to sit there and remove all the resistance for colors and combinations that somebody might have on a house. I mean, it's a crazy novel concept, a $600 billion market here in the US. Nobody's ever thought to put the buyer's specifications first. And the cool thing that we've seen, and even in this slow real estate market that we have with high interest rates, we cannot keep stocked our Customize Your New House product. It sells within the weekend for asking price or above asking price. And then for our buyers side of it, if we're working with buyers to help them identify a fixer-upper, help them create home equity in the house, again, they're able to see and visualize everything within Base versus trying to sit there and say, is this swatch going to look good next to this swatch? And again, we're moving people into the homes of their dreams with equity baked into the house by the time that they're coming in. And again, putting more people on the property ladder in the homes that they actually enjoy. And the last stat I'll say before I shut up, but over 80% of first-time home buyers last year regretted their purchase decision. And that's because, again, they're being forced a product where it's like, I chose these colors and combinations for you, deal with it. Again, from the tech experience side of it and bringing the tech world to it, how do we create this experience for our customers where it's designed exactly to their specifications? I have a blue iPhone. I can choose whatever iPhone color I want, but somebody's going to tell me what my bedroom color is going to be? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, it's funny with technology. We have opportunity we didn't have before, and it makes sense. It's not that we probably shouldn't have done it this way a long time ago. It probably would have been awful hard.
Yep.
Now what you created. So now you've created it. It's like, first I want to know like what it's going to look like before I do anything, right?
Yep.
let me try 10 different versions, right? Real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
it's much better versus putting in the $10,000 countertop and being like, I don't like that countertop. It's much easier to just visualize it with a click of a button and being like, that's the countertop I want. Let me go with that countertop. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the world we live in, like choices and being able to compare and contrast and on-demand information. We're just in that world. And you're creating a product that we're creating one that gives us that. And I can see that's huge. So tell me, in terms of what were the challenges? Like, you chose to become a franchisor. Part of it, you said, look, we're not looking to build the ivory tower and all that. And you like the idea of entrepreneurship and getting people in it. So tell me a little bit about everything you said was really awesome for the buyers and sellers. Tell me how that sits for the franchisee.
Yeah.
A day in the life of the franchisee. And again, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like a pretty fun process. You've changed really the whole dynamic of real estate sales. Like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. To me, it's like, I can see it being exciting because if I'm a buyer, I'm kind of like, I get to decide, I can create something, right? I can create a product and then go sell it to the world, or maybe I'm moving into it. I don't know. But I mean, you do have that sort of idea of, I want to create something cool. Like, and I have the resources to do something cool. I mean, you can show them that very clearly. Tell me a little bit, though, how that affects the franchisee and it being a business model and a job, or not a job, but a career, or how does that affect their world?
Yeah. I mean, it's really being on the bleeding edge of disruption. So we're coming at this from the space where we've disrupted a lot of things in the technology space. How do we now bring technology into the real estate space? The space has been so archaic for so long, and so many things have just been entrenched just because of the size of the market. So, and there's a couple things that are also really going well for us right now, just kind of luck opportunity wise. The NAR settlement, where the buyer's agents are no longer able to command their commissions settled from the seller's proceeds. Buyer's agents are now having to show the value that they are bringing to the table for their clients. So one of the big things that we can show to those buyer's agents is, let's design this house specifically for those buyers. And then that's a great way for you to sit there and look to that buyer and say, hey, I was able to help you design your house exactly to your specifications. So with our franchises, it's really working with brokers, real estate teams, individual agents on an ongoing basis, and reaching out to them and talking to them about how this is disruption. This is showing tons and tons of value. And we actually do white label the entire solution. So we'll white label the base platform for brokers so they can be seen as the leader in the space. But the franchise is the one who's actually the one in the background, making sure like, hey, we're bringing the renovation through. But that franchisee is really, as a partner, helping other brokers show and disrupt the industry space. And then once we get into those brokers, it really does start to sell itself, where homeowners are like, I don't want to be giving up my home's equity to some flipper. I know if my home has not been renovated for 10 years, the tastes and preferences have changed. So how do I have these partners, such as ReUp, come into this situation and have this shared alignment? It's, again, a crazy novel concept. So once those brokers are understanding, bringing us into those transactions before the house actually lists on the market to say, hey, there's a better way for us to extract value on the house. We can actually probably sell the house actually faster too, even with the renovation timeline. Coldwell Banker did a study over 76% of home buyers would actually prefer a move-in ready house than a fixer-upper. So again, you're broadening the scope of buyers and walking those clients through that. We do a lot of support on the back end. This is a highly complex, highly regulated industry. So there's a lot of legal work that we've done on our back end to make sure that we're compliant through all of that. So we're really working through and making sure that the client understands, the home seller and the home buyer understands, hey, these are all the nuances to this transaction to make sure that everything is compliant for you. Settlement comes very, very easy. And again, really driving, again, focusing in on that experience. That is one of the key things for ReUp. We want to be an amazing experience for both our sellers and our buyers. And we've done a good job for our sellers if we extract more value from their real estate. And for our buyers, that's the cool thing about this transaction. There's two stakeholders on this. For our buyers, we want this to be a very, very white glove service where you sit there, you're drinking champagne, you're in front of one of our base stations, you're choosing everything, you're having fun. Let's bring back the fun to real estate. There's some milestone moments in your life that you remember: your first kiss, prom, your wedding, your home purchase. And again, having that many people regret their first time home purchase, that's a great area to disrupt. So again, let's bring back the fun experience into this. And then again, you're moving into the home of your dreams at the end of this. And that's what we really train our franchises on, and making sure that they're doing that from the day in and day outs of it. And it's really rewarding when you have somebody sitting there saying, like, I did not think that I could have this accessible luxury experience until I realized what ReUp could provide me. Yeah.
And so if I'm hearing it pretty clear, the franchisee has a gold mine of an opportunity just with really and you bring a lot of sales process into your thinking. And I want to kind of hear how you thought it through. But just looking at what you just said, honestly, built in, you've got every major franchise that's a real estate agency or brokerage that would, where they're going to get a ReUp, right? They can white label. So you have built-in channels, built-in partners. How does that work? How do you launch someone? Is it pretty straightforward and you just go at the market and say, go out and go get 10 major brokers and you're going to be too busy to, the next step will be, how do we scale or how do we add in more project managers, right? So tell me a little bit about that scaling path and the sales sort of process that you thought through.
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a couple different ways that we approach it. I believe in both top down and bottom up. So we've got our own sales team on the header side. So we're going after the national brokers, sitting there positioning. Those are longer sales cycles for us. But again, it's us sitting there talking to the larger brokers of the nation saying, hey, this is what we can provide to you. Obviously, we get in there. That then brings across the entire nation of broker relationships to the table. And that helps our Florida franchises. That helps our Vegas franchises. That helps our Idaho franchises just increase the lead volume from that. I was actually talking to Idaho the other day, and they're like, I had this person call in. I've never even called into this broker. And I was like, actually, Epic Realty, that was one of our national brokers that we just signed. So that's, again, just a new lead coming in from that source. And then the franchise side of it, the broker networks are very interesting because brokers have the national level and then they have their also local franchises. So our local franchises are meeting with those local brokers. And again, that can help us actually move up to the national level. And then we've also got the individual agents. So once an individual agent's used us, it's a great way for them to also increase their commission dollars. They're not selling a $400,000 house anymore. They're selling that $750,000 house. So they're almost doubling their commission dollars when they work with us just naturally. And then it also helps them move up in the market. Like if you're an agent stuck at the $200,000 mark, renovating houses and getting them up to 400, people are going to start seeing that agents, oh, they're in the $400,000 mark. Let me bring my $400,000 house to them. So they really like this from a throughput, a differentiator perspective. So it really is this kind of nice harmonic system. And then once we have a broker, a team lead wanting to come on, we're essentially going through, we're setting up their white label and everything from the back end perspective, going through doing agent trainings, walking them through how to submit their properties through the CMAs that they submit, through the LiDAR scans that they submit, and bringing all of that data into the system so that we can then create this experience for both our sellers and our buyers. And it really is a symbiotic relationship. We see our success as our franchise's success. Our franchise's success is our success. And again, the other thing that's really nice about the franchise system versus the ivory tower that I really want to avoid is you can have the RE/MAX broker. The RE/MAX broker in Maryland is going to operate very differently from the RE/MAX broker in Vegas. And again, having those local nuances, we could not duplicate that if we did not franchise the business.
No, very smart. In terms of like community impact, right? Like obviously in working with real estate, through those networks, you're reaching a lot of people that way. Tell me a little more about the other things you think about. Is there other areas, other businesses, other ways that you like to touch the community?
Yeah, I mean, we are really, really focused in on one of my things from my finance days is I think in the US, we've just really shied away from talking about financial acumen, being shy, talking about what an individual earns versus one of your peers. And I think that's really hurt the individual, even on the real estate side. So really going through and helping beef up the financial acumen for individuals, where we're working through with them and talking about, hey, this is your greatest asset. And let's not let somebody else create their wealth off of your greatest asset. You've owned this for 10 years. You need to be the one extracting this. And one of the coolest things that I see often is we work with a lot of older generations who are moving into retirement communities. It is amazing for us to sit there and extract $40,000 to $100,000 in upside split to the home seller on that. And being able to say you were worried that you would have to be in a Medicaid facility and kind of living out your last days in not a great manner. Let's let you guys live out your last days in a beautiful manner and honor by helping you extract the value out of your real estate. And again, this is a generation, like when you're 70 plus years old, you're not wanting to do a home remodel. Let's do this. The other thing that we'll do is we'll front up to $15,000 cash to our home sellers so that they can transition while we're doing the remodel for them. Again, help them get into the right facilities. And it's really cool. We actually had one client that sticks out to me. Her father was dealing with Alzheimer's, and she came to us and she said, "I've got this house. He doesn't have a lot of money for retirement. I need to sell it for as much as I possibly can." And she's like, "I was going to go ahead and do the remodel." And I told her, I was like, "I want you to go focus and be with your dad for the next couple months. We've got the remodel. Let us do that. Let us handle that. Let us create the experience for the buyers." And then having them have that additional check for them to be able to pay for the long-term care facility. That those are great feelings at the end of the day. And then really walking people through this. And the last thing I'll say is, again, focusing in on your primary residence. These are usually tax-free gains for them as well. So by not renovating the house, it doesn't make sense. So really getting in and being able to educate these individuals around that is really, really rewarding.
Yeah, no, I'm very familiar with there are some great franchise brands that focus on the assisted living industry, right? And help families in that transition process. And I think ReUp would be a tremendous partner, a great option to try to figure that out. You want to get in some cases, every dime you can get, right? Every bit of value. And why not? And anyway, the whole process is just better. It's what is the word? Alchemy. I feel like, why wouldn't you want to just make houses better? Everybody wins. So,
yep.
You know what I mean? Because go ahead.
Actually, one of my favorite stats is if you look at the number of vacant houses, everybody hears we've got a housing shortage. We've got a housing shortage. There's 10 million vacant units in the US right now. The homeless population is under 2 million. We could literally solve the housing crisis with what we've already got. And back to the finance side of this, all this is an allocation of resources. Do we want to build new construction, which we need to do, but why are we not taking care of the units that we've already got? It takes us 3 months to do a renovation to bring that on. New construction, you're 18 months out before you even have anything. I mean, again, from a green perspective, we're revitalizing these materials. So the stuff that we're putting in, we don't need to create as much waste and things like that to, again, help solve the housing crisis. This is the largest crisis of our generation. If we don't fix housing, we're in for some dire straits here in the U.S.
Well, thank you, man. I always think about, I'm very steeped in the world of AI and tech, and I'm sure you are too. But something struck me is, the problems that we face really have to be solved by really smart people that haven't solved them yet. And when I see people like your business model is really only 3 years old, right? I think 2021.
Yep.
But that's the kind of great leadership and thinking I love to see in entrepreneurship, because we need to see problems in the private sector because it ain't going to come from the public sector. We gotta drive it from both sides.
Yep.
But anyway, cool. I love the ideas. So just real quick, let me go back to marketing a little bit, just to highlight what you guys do focus on. So from a franchise launch point of view, you got to have a presence, check the boxes. You've got a social presence. Probably LinkedIn is a valuable one. Facebook would be a valuable one. And then of course you got your Google presence and things like that. Tell me a little bit about how you think about that and what are the important check boxes for that launch strategy around digital?
Yeah. So I mean, this is my bread and butter. I mean, this is what I did in tech. How do you go to market? How do you launch new products? How do you make sure that you're educating the market around this stuff? And it all comes down to capacity planning. So the first one that we actually do is one of the reasons that we also created ReUp and focused on our distribution channel, B2B2C. So we only distribute through real estate agents. We want to be that tool to that real estate agent. Real estate agents are salespeople, and they put all their contact information everywhere. So we actually have a list of over 2 million real estate agents. We have their cell phone numbers. We have their email addresses. And we're reaching out to them, talking to them about what ReUp can do, how we can help benefit them. Again, they're increasing the house value. They're increasing their commission dollars and things like that. And we actually pair each one of our franchises with one of our SDRs. So we actually have a team of SDR, sales development representatives, down in Medellin, Colombia. They're doing about 3,000 phone calls per month for our franchisees. And they're trained on a couple very, very, very highly skilled sales leaders. So they're trained on spin selling, which is a classic selling technique that's taught throughout tech. They're trained on straight line methodology. That's Jordan Belford's methodology, Way of the Wolf. And then they're also trained on fanatical prospecting. So what we do today pays off over the next 90 days. So all of this goes into how do we do objection handling. We bucket our objections into 3 buckets based off of do they don't trust us, they don't trust our company, they don't trust our product. How do we overcome those objections? How do we understand their situation, the problems, the implications, and then the need payoff of positioning ReUp? So going through all of that, generating those leads, they are killers. They book a ton of meetings for our franchisees. And that's how we get out of the gate. So once we get out of the gate, we start to book those meetings. Those franchisees are then working through and working up into the local broker level. And then we're working to sign our first projects. So after we've got our first project signed, we really want to make big community splashes. So when we do our open houses, we sit there, we have ice cream trucks, different things that we want to work with on the franchise. We then invite all of those agents to that open house to sit there and say, let's look at the ReUp process. You can now see, touch, and feel everything. So again, we're really focused in on that community ground game and making sure that people understand, like, this is the bleeding edge of where real estate is going with us. So they're then going through that, and then we're pulling a lot of content out of that. So all the content that we're pulling out of that, we're getting testimonials. We actually try to get 4 testimonials out of every single house, one from the seller, one from the buyer, one from the listing agent, and one from the buyer's agent about the experience for all that. We're packaging all of that up on the franchise, and then we're really hitting the ground with that and promoting that through social media channels, both through the SEO strategy, paid content, and things like that. And again, I can sit here, I can tell you ReUp's the best thing. You know, who's going to tell you it better? My clients, the clients of us who sit there and say, I never thought I would be able, as a first-time home buyer, 1, to get on the property ladder, 2, to be able to design the house of my dreams. I wanted this bedroom color, and I was able to get it because of ReUp, and I was able to extract this value and actually create this accessible luxury experience that ReUp provides to individuals. So again, all of that content that we're pulling out is amazing. And then the base platform is something else that we're also really, really focused in on. One of the cool things that we've got on statistics, standpoint is the average person spends about 45 seconds on a listing. When somebody accesses one of our bases, they're usually in it for about 9 minutes. So again, it's this really, really interactive experience where they're traveling through, and it's not the typical home 3D tours that you've got where you've got the just points of interest and you can't change anything. You can change anything that you want. And we're continually adding and creating more and more experiences. We're essentially wanting to build it and make it The Sims, but for real life.
I love it, man. I love it. I love it. It really is very organic and it's very diversified. It would be hard for something to affect your plan, right? Mm-hmm. Other than something that would affect all humans. You know what I mean? Like, if you depend too much on, say, we're going to drive traffic from Google and got this great funnel and whatever, and maybe that's 70% of your business. That's not good. So,
I'm a big believer in we've got to generate off of the phones first. The phones then lead to a bunch of other stuff.
It builds.
And then the customer experience, it catches wildfire, and people continue to spread it and say, hey, you should check out ReUp. That's when I know that we've done really, really well, when we start to get those referrals.
Yeah, I don't see any. Right. That's when you kind of saw the whole life cycle go through. And so, but from the franchisee standpoint, I feel like this would be fun. Like this would be a really great thing to be sharing with the real estate world from an agent. And they're at the ground floor, right? They're whether you're just getting started in that business or you've been doing it, you're always trying to keep your flow going. And you either want more or want to build up to begin with. And I know for a lot of people in real estate, that's not easy, right? Like, how do you hey, I do this now? And how do you differentiate, in other words? And I know every franchise brand might have their angles, but I can't imagine one being this. Mm-hmm. Like, this is like, I could tell anyone this, hey, I just started real estate and I got this thing I do. Mm-hmm. Like, to me right away, you'd be different than everybody. Just to make a dramatic impact at the agent level, which to me makes the sale for the franchisee and gets the whole ball rolling.
100%. And that's part of the white label strategy that we've got, where we don't need ReUp to be the thing that we want to, again, help solve the housing crisis, help create these amazing experiences. If we're in it, we don't care if you call it the KWVIP Heritage Platform. We don't care if you call it the Redo Platform, which is what Epic has called it. We want to create these really, really unique experiences. So being able to put the brand of the broker on our platform, so it looks like that's what that agent's doing. Again, we've seen in this space, it's the concierge space, a lot of brokers have actually pulled back from the concierge business. And the reason being is selling houses and remodeling houses, they are two completely different things. Yeah, they touch the same thing. They are two completely different businesses. And the complexities that we have on top of the complexities of selling a house, they're highly complex. Putting those two together under one company is really, really hard to actually pull off successfully. So us being able to sit there and say, you'll still be able to be seen as it's under one company, and differentiate yourself and say, hey, I know that you've met with 10 agents. I'm the only agent who has this. It's under my brand. It's under my flag. That's something where, again, that's a deep, deep conversation versus hey, I'm going to give you 32 photos. I'm going to give you 2 awesome paragraphs. It's let's talk about the nuances to your real estate. The nuances to your real estate is I see that we can put another $150,000 of value onto this property. Those are deep conversations that really, really differentiate you from a real estate perspective when you're coming into the transaction. And then on the buyer's side, going to buyers and being able to say, hey, I know that you've been shopping around for houses and you're trying to find that move-in ready house. It's too expensive. You're getting beat out. Let's go find ugly houses. We'll work with my solution, and we'll be able to increase the value and use part of that value as your down payment credit. But using all of that, you're having really deep conversations with these clients and differentiating yourselves. And actually, I'll point out one stat. There's just about 2 million real estate agents in the market. When the housing market's really hot, there's actually more real estate agents than there are houses for sale. So it's highly competitive. So it's really is, how do we differentiate ourselves? And again, you're not going to be able to duplicate it. We've got the digital twin platform. So we've got the tech moat. We've got the IP moats with our patents. again, this is something where you are attaching to our platform and really differentiating yourself as a real estate agent, a real estate team, or a broker.
Yeah, no doubt. When you were talking about when I'm thinking about sales, just pure sales, it's like, yeah, you never want to introduce something that's going to slow down your process. And, if you could, and it didn't affect your process, it only helped your process, then you'd want to say it all the time. And that's kind of what you've done. You've made it so that someone can say something they would never be able to say because they couldn't do it. It's too complicated. It would slow things down. Too many other facets, like getting into home improvement, project management, it's a whole different business. And so they couldn't. But they, logically, you'd say, if I can always say these things, of course it's going to make this work better, right? I'm going to get a lot more business and a lot more deals and be different than everybody else. So that's cool. So tell me, I want to make sure that we don't leave the conversation without understanding, how now, and everything you've been saying is like this guy from John Hopkins finance brain, right? And then the sales brain. And you mentioned Jordan Belfort. I was thinking that when you said the finance stuff, right? The sales. But tell me about the financing. So if I want to get into becoming a franchisee, I know there's a couple of different things. One is getting started and whatever those costs are. But then it's like that first year or two, like that. You've thought of some things to try to make sure cash flow is strong. We have time to do what we need to do. We know kind of what we need to do. Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah. So it's a upfront fee, depending on the population size that you're looking to buy. That's a 5-year commitment with us. There's some monthlies. We don't require any sort of physical office space or things like that. We were born in COVID. We want to sit there and continue to operate in a virtual manner. So again, cutting down on a lot of those expenses that you might have with like a brick and mortar type franchise. And then one of the really, really beneficial parts of ReUp is actually the way that we've set up our capital structures. So the way that our capital is set up, you have to think about this. If you want to get into the flipping space, let's say that you want to get into the flipping space, you've got to buy a $400,000 house. All that does is get you in the door. You then have to put in $100,000. The $100,000 is actually the thing that moves the value of the real estate. Now, let's say that you sell that for $650,000. Now, let's look at your rate of return. So a lot of people don't realize this, and I realized this from the financial background that I got. You don't get rich off of the dollars that you create. You get rich off of the ROI that you get off of your investment. So you're all in at $500,000 to make $150,000. Now, we're giving up half of our upside to either our buyers or our sellers, but we're not purchasing the home for $400,000. So that's gone. That's out of the equation. We're putting in the $100,000 to make the $75,000. So we've created $150,000 in upside. Half of that's split with the home seller. So we're walking away with 75 in that example. I'm making a 75% rate of return on a very short duration. So when you look at our annualized returns are well in excess of over 100%. Versus the flipper who goes in all at 500 to make 150. They're at sub 30% rate of return on that versus my over 100% rate of return. The other big differentiator that we've got is if you want to go into the space of flipping, you're no different than anybody else. You're going to have those dumb flippers who sit there and overbid on the house, and that home seller is obviously going to go with them because they want as many dollars as possible. Versus the ReUp side where we're sitting there saying, nope, like we're basically giving you the same as is value of the property that a flipper would give you, but we're also letting you have half the upside. So doesn't this make sense? You just have to wait an extra couple months, and we can help with a lot of different situations, again, by helping front some of that capital up front and things like that. So it's a highly capital efficient model. It's a highly differentiated model for us to sit there and make sure that we're differentiating and winning deals compared to the flipper taking those on. And all of that's financed through our attached GPLP structures. So we actually have an attached GPLP. It's a company called ReUp Fuel that goes out into the business world that raises capital. If you wanted to create this your own way, try going to a warehouse line. No warehouse line is going to give you capital in a second position because we are in second position behind the primary mortgage. Our GPLP structure, that's raising money off of family offices, hedge funds, and things like that. That's all injected into the renovation. And again, our underwriting teams are looking at the deal, analyzing everything for you. making sure that we're not getting over our skis, making sure that we've got the right budgets, we've got the right times, the right cost of capitals on our back end, and all of that's financed for you. And then we essentially drop that into a for benefit of account, and all of that's dispersed through you. So you're looking at the contractor, you're making sure that everything's coming and at the right timelines. You're distributing the draws through that FBO account. We also give the franchisees a credit card that they then also run off of. And again, all the settlement procedures, we're making sure that all the title is clouded. We're making sure that settlement is coming into the accounts, everything's staying compliant. Again, this is highly, highly complex stuff. We're dealing with really large sums of money. So again, we want to make sure that we're highly compliant with that. Again, all of that stuff is being handled by us, the franchisor. So the franchisee doesn't have to worry about, do I have the capital that I need for these renovations? All that's provided by us.
So that is very brilliant. I mean, for a franchise model, because I got to believe if you're even thinking, I want to flip, like as a model and learn from someone that might share that with you. It seems to me like this would be one of the other bigger problem, which would be, how do I get consistent capital so I can just sell? I could just find the relationships, find the channels, help the homeowners, just design what needs to be designed, and the money flows in. And I got to manage it, and you're going to teach me to manage it. But basically, the faucet's on. I just got to go, basically get the cups to fill up the cups.
Yep. So, and the other thing that I'll say is our patented process with Customize Your New Home. That's actually a financial engineering move that we've done. So if we can use that capital 3 times a year, and I'm in excess of I'm at that 75% rate of return, I'm at over a 250% annualized rate of return, which is ridiculous. If I can then shorten the renovation, so you got to think about this from the standard flip. So this is the standard flipper. They're going to do a month of demo, a month of structural work, a month of finish out, a month of listing and sale. We're co-terming that finish out with that listing and sale. So we're shaving a month off the timeline. I can now use my capital 4 times a year. So I'm actually increasing my ROIs. I'm also borrowing less. So you have to think about this. You have to pay for the finish outs. We're not paying our contractors for the finish outs until everything's installed on that house. So again, we're now actually borrowing less, using the settlement proceeds for that. So again, increasing that ROI. And then on top of that, we actually do have what's called surge pricing. So we price every house with the standard list of materials. We have LVP floor in this house, for example. Let's say that home buyer wants to sit there and move up to hardwoods. We can do that. We'll add value to that. We increase the price of the house, wrap all that stuff up into the mortgage. So it's like, cool, that's going to be a $10,000 increase, but that's only about $4 on your monthly mortgage. Don't you want to move forward with those hardwood floors? So again, all of it is based off of how do we continue to make sure that we're using this highly, highly capitally efficient model. And that's based off of a lot of the financial acumen that we have. We're very, very deep on that side at the ReUp house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say I still remember, just as a business person, you're around finance, but you should be understanding it a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my background, I told you earlier, I don't know if I said it on air here, but I told you earlier, my finance degree was my background, but I listened to you and I'm saying, yeah, you're optimizing every aspect. You're layering everything you can do. Yeah, you're a very attractive investment. Like, it would be that kind of rate of return. You just wouldn't have an issue. You just focus on driving sales.
Yep.
And you can create the product. To me, but to make that happen is extremely hard. Mm-hmm. Like you have to think of all the things you're saying so that flow is always flowing. And I don't run into problems getting funding or whatever.
Yep. So, and again, this is highly, highly regulated stuff. I mean, we're dealing with people's primary residencies. This isn't investment properties. Like, these are highly regulated industries. So also the legal complexity on that side of the house is crazy. So
huge moat. It's a huge moat around your model. It's going to be hard for people to figure out how to do what you do. So, okay. As we wrap up, I like to finish with this question. What advice might you give someone thinking about this? Right. I don't always say it from that perspective. I mean, it could be, another franchisor in the space, that feels the same way you do. But how about we just say, what advice would you give someone who has no background in this, mm-hmm. but is a go-getter, right? I'm sure the profile, maybe share a little bit about the profile you're looking for. But I see anyone who's a go-getter, likes sales and marketing, loves to learn everything we just talked about. But what advice would you give someone who's considering this? I think this is a big opportunity. It might be the right time. Share with the audience what your advice would be.
Yeah, a couple things. One, you've got to be incredibly forward leaning and understand like this is disruption. This is us taking Silicon Valley practices to the US. And I think that's one of the things that we've got to do as a society. We've got to stop fixing Silicon Valley's problems. That's why I got out of the space. I wanted to take Silicon Valley solutions and bring them to everyday individuals. So how do we actually lean into disruption? So you want to make sure that you are really sitting there having that kind of questioning of always why are we doing it that way? $600 billion market. Why are we finishing out the house and not letting the buyer choose it? Seems like a very simple why question. So having that thirst to sit there and say, why should we do it that way? And isn't there a more efficient way? And having this challenger type model to sit there and say, I know you've been listing houses this way forever. There's a better way for it. And this is how this is. So having that as a core ingredient for you is critical for us. And then the other piece is really not underestimating the sales aspect of it. In fanatical prospecting teaches you the stuff that you do today pays off over the next 90 days. Going in, making sure that you're building up the sales team, making sure that you're working on their sales activities, making sure that you're working on their methodologies. Again, sales does come down to both a mathematical number, a psychological aspect to it, and then also a little bit of luck too. And then also just repeated motions, the same things that you have to do. So really doing that. And the thing that gets away from people is once you really understand the model, it makes a lot of sense. You love it and you fall in love with it. You have to then sit there and be the biggest evangelist for that model in your local area. And the thing that I'll say is you're asking somebody for a big ask. You're asking somebody to give you their most valuable asset. And the first thing we're going to do to it is we're going to destroy it. We'll put it back together. But that's a big hurdle of trust factor that you have to build up to sit there and say, you're in good hands. I've done this a lot of times and I've got this amazing team behind me to make sure that you are in good hands and that we're going to extract value for your real estate. So those are the two big things, the thirst for why, and then also just making sure that you're focused in on building your sales team. The rest comes through. And again, a lot of people overestimate the project management side of it. There's amazing contractors, and you build this network of contractors that you just continue to use, and that comes naturally. And we weed out those bad contractors. So again, people overestimate that aspect. That aspect's actually one of the easier sides of it.
Yeah, I would agree. And one of the things I've always loved about sales is, and you mentioned 3 sales programs that are all complementary and very good ones. And just learning those skills would be extremely valuable in anything you do. But I mean, anytime you're a numbers guy, you're a finance guy, you're a numbers guy, systems guy, and I hear that. And it's very predictable if you're willing to execute, if you're willing to just be fanatical. And you know what? I was telling someone recently, I'm like, getting fanatical is not so easy. Like, okay, you tell me to go do that. But it's harder to find the product that is the real deal, and you can show it to people up front. Some of the things you're doing helps people visualize and see, right? And to me in sales, that can always be one of the big challenges. You got this great thing, but people can't see what you're saying. And so you've kind of checked all the boxes. And I think if someone is willing to execute, it's like it's there for you. Go for it.
One of the really cool things that I learned at CrowdStrike was we didn't actually always forecast the business off of what deals. We've got this company here and this company here and this stage. We actually forecast off of sales activities. So we were actually able to sit there and go all the way up the funnel and say, if we made this many cold calls and we make this many emails, our average deal is worth this. It takes this amount of time for us to close the deal. And we were able to very accurately, I was able to forecast $1 billion business based off of cold calls that we were able to do and say within a plus or minus about $2 million, $1 billion business based off of the sales activity. So again, it all ties in together, and it is fun when you actually start to be able to pull all that stuff together and through.
Well, and that is one of the key sales training tactics too, is that if you have that, you can get anyone to believe, right? for me, I'm always a guy that says, I believe in the product. I do at this stage of my career. I have to believe what I'm doing. But like I was just thinking what you were saying is like, if you're sending emails today or you're making calls today, it feels good to know that no matter what, that contributes. Like just keep making them, right? So even if it's a no kind of day. But that always was good to have those numbers. And that's how I was taught. And I can testify it works. So, and you and I both have seen companies grow, and you did several. It seems like that's what you did. And it worked. So cool. Hey, man, it's been absolute pleasure having you on board today, Ryan. Thanks again. Can you share the website and any just final parting words so people can get a hold of you guys if they're interested?
Yeah. So our website is ReUp, REUP, living, like you're living and breathing.com. And then there's a franchise section, so you can fill that out. There's also contact forms if you can't find that. And that's the best way to get in touch with you. And I will say this. We are a core sales group, so you will hear from us within business hours within about 45 minutes. So we don't it's not a dark hole. We monitor that stuff aggressively, and those emails even come to me as well. So if I'm not seeing them tackled, I'm the one calling you as well. So that's how to get in touch with us.
Yeah, and I say it almost every time we do an episode. This is an opportunity, folks. Talk to Ryan. He knows his stuff. He can help you learn about what he's doing. That's what I would say. Have a great opportunity. Anyone on his team. So that would be cool. Thanks again for sharing all this with us. It's refreshing to hear. It's a good mission you have. I really hope that we do solve some of these bigger problems. And I did hear what you said about the homeless and what we can do with the inventory of homes. So love that you have those driving ideas behind your business. So thanks for that, Ryan. And thanks for being on the show.
Rob, thank you very much, and happy 4th of July.
You too.